I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead Leadership Live Edition. I'm JJ Hardy, the host of all the Speak Up, Show Up, Lead shows, and I'm here with my co-host for Leadership Live, Chris Pienkowski. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing great, JJ. How are you?
You know, pending technical issues, everything seems to be okay. Seems to be okay. Again, everybody, thank you for putting up with us, and hopefully you all pop back in. We're a little bit late today because we had some internet and camera issues this morning that we had to iron out. Otherwise, we're still here to talk about leading with influence.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, leading with influence, such an important topic, because there are plenty of times when someone may not have the, quote unquote authority to lead, but it's still incumbent upon them to get things done. And the next way to get that done without the authority is through influence. So I'm looking forward to talking about how you build that influence and how you use it to make things happen.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, they equate leadership to, your position. And you can lead up and down the chain of command. You could be all the way down at the bottom of the totem pole and still be extremely influential in your organization. I know that's what you just said, but I'm just making sure I clarify, because a lot of people do still seem to think that without that positional authority, you can't do it. Right. And it's just not true. And, my voice's framework is the perfect way to do it, but really it's all of it. Trust is the biggest thing that really gets you there. And leading by example and all of the things. And we'll go into why and how in just a second. But, if people around you, they don't trust you, I don't care if you're the CEO of the company, they're going to show up for the paycheck, and that still doesn't even last forever. So, if you're not trusted, if people, like is a really weird word, but you still have to be relatable. And there's some stuff we're going to go into here that you don't have to like everybody you work with, but you do still have to work with them. But if you're going to be influential, there is a certain like factor and trust factor that goes along with it. So, what do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you're someone that nobody likes, good luck getting people to do things for you.
Yep.
I've had these things, throughout my career. I've seen them happen where it's just an abrasive personality from somebody, and they're trying to lead up the chain, or they're trying to influence peers. And I know personally I've done it. I've been like, just flat out no. Why would I do anything for you? You're like one of the most miserable people that I've ever met. So, but you expect me to do you a favor? In those cases, if you do have an abrasive personality, if you're one of those people that other folks don't like, but you do need to influence, you've got to be very good with explaining what it is you're asking for and why you're asking for it, and the purpose, how it's going to benefit the organization. But if you're one of these people that, has a tough time influencing others, maybe, let me pause for a second. Most people who have trouble influencing others, they don't recognize the flaws in their personality of why people don't want to do things for them. And I think it creates like a vicious cycle, because then those people are like, well, they don't like me for whatever reason. Most of the times they don't like you because you're an asshole, but there are ways to get around that too.
You know, it takes a lot of humility to be an influential leader, and likable, sure, but more than anything else, I think it's relatable and approachable. That is probably more important, and that gets you to the point where people like you. I mean, if they want to be around you because you're that person that helps them all the time, you're that person that can get down on the level with them and stuff like that. Maybe personality is not always the most important thing, but being that person that always does what they say, isn't abrasive, isn't like you said, isn't a jerk or an asshole. I mean, being someone who can meet people where they are and help them understand, if you're their boss, their duties, if you're their peer, that help them with understanding lessons learned, or assisting when it's time to assist, or something like that, is extremely important to being influential. And without being able to do those things, well, the one element that all of this stuff creates is trust. And without all of that, if people see you struggling, they might help if it's blatantly obvious, but they might just walk right past you too.
Yep.
And if you're the boss, then they'll do what you say, but they're probably not going to do too much more than you say, or they're not going to do it. They're not going to put the most effort into doing the things that you tell them to do, because they don't think you care. And that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we've talked about this before, but the area of positional authority is probably the least effective in terms of getting buy-in from people. Like, yeah, just because I'm the boss and I say do X, you might do X, you might do it really half-assed, but if I can influence you, if I can build a relationship with you, and then I ask you to do X, there's a much greater chance that you're going to do X in a way that shows pride, that takes it to the next level, that whatever. Like that's what people, I think, a lot of times discount is they think, well, because of my title, I can have people do things. That may be true,
It is.
but the level at which they do those things is a lot different if you're able to build trust and authority or influence with those people.
Now let's talk about trust, because we've danced around it, and we talked about that's what everything kind of relies on. But let's paint a picture. So when you go to work, you show up, you do the things that you have to do. Maybe you had a bad experience at the place that you worked at before. Yeah, true enough, you have a fresh slate. But what is your thought when you have this new boss that maybe you don't know anything about, and maybe there are a couple complaints? People always complain around you when you're, especially if you're at the lowest level. Even when you're at the manager level, there are still people complaining around you. And you really want to do a good job, but in the back of your mind, that last person that you worked for and that last team that you couldn't stand is still in the back of your mind. And for some people, they could have been doing this type of thing from job to job for decades. Do you really trust these new people just because it's a brand new job? You may be putting your best foot forward, but do you really have that immediate trust? No, it needs to be built.
Yeah,
And
it definitely does. Yep.
Yeah, it does need to be built. And so if you, let's say you're not at the lowest and you're going into that job, don't you think that every person in your organization deserves to have the opportunity to have that built with you? Without trust, the workplace just doesn't mesh. We talk so much about culture and how
Mhm.
culture is important. I mean, if you go into a job and the immediate culture is, we're going to lay the hammer down for everything, well, if that's good for you, great. Most places, I would say that that's not going to work because that's not a very trusting environment. It might be a very fast-paced environment. Sometimes those environments are ones where, the work just keeps coming and coming and coming, and the op tempo is very fast, and you don't have the ability to not do your very best because it's just rapid fire. But, you know, I would say for the most part, if you guys don't work well together, you're not going to trust each other, and you're not going to the culture at work is not going to be one that's built on getting stuff done and teamwork and stuff like that. Trust is kind of the glue that holds every other aspect of relational stability in the workplace together. And
Yeah.
I mentioned in the very beginning that you don't have to be friends, but you do have to get along, and you do have to work with each other. And and if you want people to listen to you, say you're that manager, director, VP, CEO, whatever, you do want people to think to themselves, that guy really, really cares about me and the work that I'm doing.
Yep.
And if none of those things are there, then that glue, that trust glue that is keeping those relationships strong all around you and with you and other people, it's not going to happen. And those new people that come in, it's just gonna make that culture even worse. And it doesn't even matter how great that person seems like they are when they do that interview. So trust is probably the most important thing, because if you want to influence people, you have to have some sort of a relationship,
Yeah.
even if it's uncomfortable.
Agreed. And I don't want to go. I don't want to turn this episode into an episode about trust when we're talking
No,
about
no, no,
influence.
no. But
But
we've mentioned that quite a few times. I just wanted to make
yeah,
sure I elaborate why that's important.
well, and I'm just going to take it one step further, and then we'll loop this back into influence. But if anyone's familiar with Patrick Lencioni's work and the five dysfunctions of a team, it's kind of done as a pyramid, and the very first layer of that pyramid, the foundation of it, is trust. So the lack of without trust, you cannot build a high performing team.
Right.
Your team will always be dysfunctional without trust. So yeah, it's the root of so many things, including influence.
It is. And now we should go into why influence is we need to go more into influence. So let's do that. But relationships,
Mhm.
in order to be influential with somebody, you have to have some sort of relationship.
Yep.
And again, it's got to be on trust, but it's got to be on other things too. So, I mentioned that it's got to be relatable. You got to be relatable with everybody, and they have to know that they can rely on you. So being relatable is actually not nearly as difficult than a lot of people think. And really it relies on the idea that you just have regular interactions that are non-work related. But when those actions are work related, that they're not negative interactions, they're positive interactions. And we're not
Mhm.
going to get woo woo here, but when you have those non-work related reactions, it could just be, hey man, what did you do over the weekend? What types of things did you guys do at your daughter's birthday? Following up when they tell you something important about their life. Give them a little bit of you. Don't I mean if you're not the type of person to give a whole lot of information about your personal life, that's fine. You don't have to do that. But give a little bit about you, in that you're just saying, hey, look, as the family and I, we're probably going to go camping this summer, and then, follow up later on, mention that you actually went camping. The fact that you follow up on their experiences and then you follow up on your experiences, it gives them the ability to know that you guys both have a life outside of work, and that you don't only care about the grind and getting stuff done. You care about the personal aspect of, and that right there creates a relationship. And then, there's the work too. I mean, you got to focus on the work too, but when tasks get done, you need to be reliable. We can go more into that in a second, but what do you think about the whole relationship stuff?
Oh, yeah. Relationships are, I've always said that relationships are the foundation of leadership. If you can't build relationships with people, if you can't come across as like a regular human being, it's hard then to build trust, which makes it even harder to build influence. So you do have to be intentional about it. I do know people, and I mean, I'm guilty of this. When I was, a young idiot, it was like, look, I'm here to work. I'm not here to make friends. Like, and I've learned the benefit, and still, you don't have to be best friends with the people that you work with, but being human, right? Talking about something outside of work. Yeah, this is how I spent my weekend, or I just finished up this cool project that, has been on my wife's honeydew list for the past year. Like I got that done, and it just spurs conversations, and you never know what other common interests you may have with somebody, which then builds the relationship even stronger. So, yeah, being relatable and having some kind of connection is what helps you to build influence.
Yeah. And then the other thing out that we were talking about is, the work aspect. Of course, we got to get to that, because if you're in an organizational leadership position, or you're working in a bigger business, well, then got to be reliable, and not just reliable, but when people leverage you or ask you questions or ask for your help, be that person that's willing to do that stuff. Yeah, sometimes it might affect your productivity. Yeah, sometimes it may slow you down a little bit, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, building that part of the relationship at work is going to strengthen the team, not just you. And by the way, without even knowing it, say you're not even in a management position or anything like that, when a bigger initiative is going to happen, the manager is going to see that you're the one who's out there, spider webbing around the workplace and making things happen. And they're going to be like, oh, that's right, Chris is that one that goes over there and does this stuff. We probably need to bring him up and say what this new initiative is, because if he's tracking it, then it doesn't really matter what the rest of the team knows. They're going to do it because he's out there doing it. And so, of course, you should probably get some involvement with the rest of the team if it's necessary, but there are all kinds of different initiatives out there. Sometimes you do just get one or two of people involved, but that's a conversation for another time. But, if you're that reliable person that can be leveraged in not just way, it can be through, just asking a question and getting an answer, asking for help and getting physical help, then that is also another way to build that relationship and create influence. Because just think, if all you have to do is say something to somebody when it comes time to make things happen, and they are automatically just on it, they are ready to help, they're pumped up. Well, that's the influence right there. And it's because you built that relationship.
Yeah. And guess what? It doesn't happen overnight.
Nope.
It takes time. It takes your investment into that relationship to build it, so that one day, maybe never, you can, ask for that favor. You can use your influence to get something done. Yeah. But yeah, the influence doesn't come overnight. The relationships don't build overnight. So you've got to be intentional about them. You have to be vulnerable. That's one of the fastest ways to build a relationship with somebody is to be vulnerable in front of them, to show that you're human, and to show that, like, hey, I'm fallible here. And I think too, I've seen this in the past where that person that does show vulnerability, when they're trying to influence or get other people to do things, it happens much faster. So, because again, it comes back to being relatable, and all of these things, directly tie into your ability to influence.
Right. And let's say you get promoted, right? Say you're
Mhm.
just driving that forklift, or you're the shelf stocker, and you just work alongside a bunch of other people, but eventually you're noticed and you
Mhm.
get promoted to that supervisor or manager or something like that. If you already have the influence, don't you think that it's going to make your job, when it comes time to be the facilitator of making sure the work gets done, so much easier? That's the
Mhm.
biggest hurdle that most people have when they first start a management job, is that they got to prove themselves to their team.
Yeah.
You sometimes I know a lot of people who say, "Well, I've never had to do that." Well, there's an element to that. You can't just step in and just expect everybody to trust you and get along with you and want to do the things that you say without maybe a little bit of pushback or something like that. You got to be influential. So I mean, if you go into it and people can't stand you, or maybe they don't know you, and you get selected for that management position, you're just that quiet guy that did everything they were supposed to do, but didn't really talk to anybody, which is okay, by the way.
Mhm.
But if you decide you want to get promoted and they select you for that, and now those people that you worked with are now, you're their supervisor or their manager, and now you have to start directing the work. First of all, if you kept your nose to the grindstone and just did what you had to do every day, you're not going to know the whole job. You're just going to know the part of the job that you did.
Yeah.
So, influential, being a manager, it's not just on the ground level, because there are tiers. So your boss is going to notice this stuff when you become a manager as well. If you don't know the job, it's going to be really, really hard. And by the way, every time you go to a new job, you're not always going to know the whole job. So I'm not saying that when you take the management position, that you should automatically know everything about the position you take. But if you don't have those relationships, you don't understand the entire scope of the job, you're not going to be as influential either, because the workers that you have, they're not going to trust somebody who can't just separate himself from his position and get down on the ground and make the stuff happen as well, or step in and say, well, this is what I would do, and help get the work done. So learning that position, learning how those people operate in that position, is another way to be influential, and how you communicate those tasks, that's going to really make a difference too.
Yep. Agreed. Um, yeah. Sometimes you just got to get your hands dirty, and even after you get promoted, do some of the things that you were doing before to help others in order, to be able to influence them.
Yeah, yeah, but make sure that you never know what position you're going to be in the future. And
Right.
so treat every job that you go into as one where you could potentially be directing that job later on. Be
Yeah.
the one that facilitates the work getting completed in that job later on. That's also going to help you. And if you want to lead from all levels, you should know a little bit about what's going above, what's going below, and what the other people are doing who are in your same position, because you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot if you don't have a clear understanding. And that's that whole vision idea of having it work. If you don't understand the entire sight picture of what's going on in the workplace, people aren't going to come to you, because they're going to be like, oh, that guy just kind of,
Yeah.
he's a good worker, but he just kind of stays in his lane.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got his horse blinders on.
Right.
Yeah.
And those people exist, and those
Yeah.
people are needed. But if you want to be influential, you can't just stay only in your lane. Obviously, you don't want to step on people's toes or anything like that. So there's a balance there. But you definitely want to be helpful in any way that you can. I mean, that when you're paid to do one job and you only do that one job, you're not doing anything wrong. I want to be clear. But if you want to create influence and be that guy that has some pull when things start hitting the fan, then you got to step out of that whole lane and make sure you're helping other people.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's see. We have trust. We have building relationships. We have making sure you're competent. Those are all very, very important parts of influence. What else, Chris? Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
That seems like a good starting point. Because without any of those, you're not influencing anything.
Nothing.
And yeah, your track record helps you to establish influence. Like someone who's been there, done that. All right, now I'm gonna most likely listen a little more.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing else comes to mind.
Yep. I would just make sure that I add that you are not just in a way that builds a relationship, but you're an effective communicator.
Yeah. You
need to communicate well. And I know we talked about communicating not just at work and making sure that you're helping people out and all that other stuff. But, let's say you're already in that management position. How you deliver tasks to people matters.
Yes.
If you're that guy that just throws knives every single time, something needs to be done, and you're a hey you, and you don't give much information about stuff, and you expect things to be done, and if there's a question that they come to you, you're going to have a hard time there too. And that's the other thing I'd like to add to that. But we are at the time, I didn't even realize it, for our closing comments. Chris, what would you like to add in there for closing comments today?
If you want to influence people, first invest the time to get to know them and build relationships with them. That's going to be your fastest path to influence.
Yep. And I would say that, if you want to build influence, make sure you are that guy that is always, always, always willing to be a helping hand for other people. And nobody looks at you as that big jerk at work.
True.
If you can at a minimum do those two things, you're on the right track.
Yep. I'd agree with that.
Yes. That's really, gosh, how basic is that? But that is so true. But otherwise, next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, but we're going to dig into, not next week, in a couple of weeks, but we're going to talk about leading up and down the chain of command.
Mm-hmm.
And although that's about influence, there's a lot to it when it comes to leading up and down the chain of command and what types of things you should do and shouldn't do. So if that interests you, make sure you tune in. I am so happy we're doing that one, because I haven't on my course for first time leaders. I actually included that in there because a lot of people don't even know that you can do that.
Yeah, totally possible. And that's what helps you to kind of rise up the ranks as well.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, I think that's it for the day. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. It's been kind of a mixed bag on here today, but hopefully in a couple weeks, it's a little bit more. We definitely enjoy the audience interaction. So don't forget to like. If you do enjoy these, make sure you subscribe so you get that notification that tells you when we go live, or, follow me or whatever the case, depending on what platform you're on, follow. But otherwise, leave a comment below, because we do, we're going to move on to a couple more topics in this series. But once that's over, we want your feedback so we know what kind of things that you guys want to hear. what topics are important to you. So leave a comment below so that we can include those types of things in our series. And by the way,
sure.
when we have a high level of interaction on these lives, that's kind of lately, it seems like with our high interaction, that's kind of how we developed our topics anyway.
That's right.
So we really do care about what the audience thinks. So make sure you leave a comment below. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great day.